All right, so we are here on a special Couch Coach Live. The day that I didn't think it would ever come at this point. We're gonna celebrate the memory of our beloved Washington Redskins, and we all know that the team has changed. They are now considered the Washington football team, and of course, I had to get my guy Rob from the Football and Chill podcast, another fellow Redskin brethren from the left coast, and
Yes,
we
sir.
we gotta do it right, man. What's going on, Rob?
Hey, man, it's been a crazy 24 hours, 48
Yes,
hours.
yes,
It's been wild, but I'm glad that at least for the meantime we'll be able to put it to the side and focus on the upcoming season. Hopefully, we have one.
yeah. And I tell you about, I'm hoping we don't. To be real with you, this name thing kind of is it does sit with me really, really well. So,
If,
your thoughts on the announcement of the temporary name of our beloved skins, the Washington football team. Your thoughts on that?
um, to be honest, it was a little bit of both. At first, well, obviously, overall, I like it. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's dope. I think just
Mm-hmm.
Washington football team is nice. It has a nice ring to it. If they decided to stick with the Washington football team, I wouldn't be upset because in Europe, a lot of soccer teams, they have team nicknames, but they're not known as those nicknames. It's
Yeah.
Byron or Byron Munich FC, Barcelona, Real Madrid, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I prefer DCFC. I like DC
Yeah.
Football
Football.
Club.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
Pat McAfee has been talking about that for weeks. But I do
Yeah.
wish the only problem I had with it is that they waited until now to do so.
Yeah.
I really did not like at the beginning when they did the whole, we're not the Redskins, we're retiring the name and the logo. So we're not the Redskins, but we don't have a name yet. So we're still going to be called the Redskins, but we're officially not the Redskins, but we're still the Redskins. But we're not. I didn't
Right.
like it at all. I think that they had every intentions of coming out with a name by the beginning of
Yeah.
training camp. But as we all know, somebody in that area or somebody took up like 40 trademarks that they could possibly use. And I think that's where the headache is coming from. They didn't think the trademarking issues were going to be what they are.
Mm-hmm.
So better late than never. But I do wish that they would have done this from the start and just officially retired everything and just gone as Washington Football Club.
Yeah, and it's one of those points where it's so like, and that was my biggest thing going into it because I was like, we're so close to to training camp, and I'm like, it's hard to do a quick fix like that because you got to think about it. Now you got to incorporate a logo. Now you got
Yeah.
to incorporate everything that deals with just this a franchise itself. Much less it takes time even to do that in the off season. Much less trying to condense that within a 3 to 4 week period.
Right.
It's just, I mean, like now they're a mad scramble to essentially get rid of all Redskin, any resemblance of that logo without, throughout the whole stadium and throughout the whole facilities and what have you. And that's going to be tough even now. I mean, and they have up until September for that. So that's another
Right.
thing where it's just like, I do understand, like you said, I get the point of, hey, it's just temporary. And like you said, I wouldn't mind it being like DCFC, where DC football club.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things where it's a nice temporary fix. And it is like you're saying, like, and matter of fact, Jeff, he chimed in too. And like we were talking yesterday with Jeff, and he was saying how essentially you look at it where you don't have to rush. It wasn't a rush decision where this kind of buys you the time. You don't have to worry about saying, hey, what if we named it the Red Wolves? I'm like, oh man, that kind of sucked, and we're stuck with it.
Yeah.
So it gives it the time to kind of, get more input, and saying like, so even the copyright, not the copyright, but the those things actually was a blessing in disguise. The copyrights was kind of a blessing
all the
in
trade.
disguise.
Yeah. Dan Snyder handled this terribly from the minute he bought the team all the way up until now. We've been in the last 10 years been hearing groups outraged by the name and saying it's a racial slur and all that. So and even when I think it was either USA Today or New York Times back in 2013 saying I'm never changing the name. You could put that in all caps. I'm never changing the name, and never say never, because look at here we are, 2020, having to change the name, and he waited on it so long that it put him
Right.
in that situation that you made that announcement 2 months before training camp, a month before training camp, and now that has become more of an issue, more of a talking point. It's been more in the news than the fact that we could possibly have one of the best front sevens in the league
Right.
with Chase Young, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, Ryan Kerrigan, Ryan Anderson. We got all that going on. Plus, we got Kendall Fuller back. But instead, we're talking about a name change, not the game, not the game. We're talking about a name change.
Right. Shout out to Al Lavison on that one. And yeah, and that's another thing too, where initially when it happened, I was like, I just want this to be over with, because this comes at a time where, especially of our, of us as Skins fans, where this is the time of the year where we have great optimism, because everybody's undefeated at this point.
Exactly.
So you coming in July, you're excited, you're like, okay, what's the season gonna bring? And now we were at a point where we were just at limbo, where you're hearing all the title sponsors of the organization essentially forcing their hand, and it's just one of the things where, like you said, even like in the thing with Daniel Snyder, which, like you said, he handled it very well. Terribly, pardon me, terribly, because like you said, and this was one of the things where and especially now, and the thing about it is not having that foresight, which sucks going forward for him as well, because we kind of knew at one point that this could definitely go up, and now with everything that's going on, and how just there's a culture that we live in, as far as when we look at terms and we deem as derogatory, and you knew they were going to eventually come for you. So like you said, and that should have been the situation, even in his back pocket, like, hey, if the name changed, what should we do? So it's almost not having a plan for this.
Exactly. 1,000%.
Right. And now
couldn't have said it better myself.
And those, like you said, it throws a cloud up this, and it's crazy because that's the thing with this situation. Like you said, Rob, and we should be excited. We have a great young defense. We have one of the best young front sevens in the league, and no one's talking about any of the personnel. None of that.
Right.
They're sitting here. We got this name change, and then we have the Washington Post article from last week, and
it is. There's so many other things clouding what we should be talking about, especially we're 2 weeks away from training camp, or a week away from training camp. That's what we should be focusing on. Also, the fact that Alex Smith just got cleared by doctors to go, and so that throws another thing into our offseason that we could be talking about. Is there a potential QB battle between Dwayne Haskins and Alex Smith? But again, instead we're talking about the fact that we don't have a nickname right now.
Right. And then the whole thing of, and then the only thing about the name thing that kind of bugs me, the uniforms. So we're gonna have numbers on our helmets, like we're Alabama, like we're like a. I don't like that.
No, I love it.
You think so?
I do.
I don't,
because you are doing something like in Alabama, such a historic program. You're getting rid of all the distractions as much as you possibly could.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's still going to be a story throughout the season. What is the name going to be? There's already reports of somebody on Reddit the other day put out like some trademark thing that he found, supposedly, that is suggesting we're going to be the DC Sentinels, which I'm not a fan of by any stretch of the imagination. Right. But yeah, it's very clean, we're not getting rid of the color scheme. That was my big thing, is I didn't want to get rid of the color scheme.
Oh no.
Because my wife about 2 weeks ago literally just painted this wall behind me because of it. And she told me, she's like, I'm not painting that wall again. She said, you better make it a USC wall if you change teams or something happens.
Yeah.
No, we're not putting Buckeye leaves on those helmets. Jeff.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
Come on now.
No, thank you. But yeah, And like you said, that's one thing too. I at least want to have the color scheme still going. We still want to be burgundy and gold,
right?
Regardless of what happens, it's got to stay burgundy and gold. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah. So Rob, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this upcoming service for our beloved Skins. So, what made you become a fan, man?
So, not a lot of people know this about me, but this is actually my second stint as a Washington fan. So, my dad is a Redskins fan, diehard Redskins fan. Has the logo right there on his shoulder. Diehard. My first jersey was a Heath Jeweler jersey. I was born in '92. My first ever jersey. But then I was, for a period of time, I was actually a 49ers fan because, and here's a story behind that. My parents aren't together. They broke up shortly after I was born. I was probably like maybe a year old, somewhere around there. They're not together. And so growing up, once I finally started actually watching football and getting into it, once I moved on past the Cartoon Network and Disney Channel phase, I was actually starting to watch sports. And I would spend the weekends at my mom's house with her, at the time, her husband, or her boyfriend at the time, and would eventually be her husband, so my stepdad. And he was a 49ers fan. Growing up in California, because I'm not from the DC area. I'm not even from the DMV. I'm from California. So living in California, being at their house on the weekends, pre-DirecTV, our choices were the Niners and the Raiders. He happened to be a Niners fan. I was always watching football there, and just kind of just started rooting for them. I was somehow was a 49ers fan. And then in 1999, the Redskins and 49ers played each other. And my dad, I'm sure he despised the fact that I was a fan of a team other than his. So he told me, he's like, hey, I'll make you a bet. If the Redskins win, you're going to be a Redskins fan again. If the 49ers win, I'll be a 49ers fan. And at the time, I was 7 years old. Thought it was the best bet in the world. Because even back then, the Redskins weren't very good. So I was like, all right, bet. Looking back on it now, 20 years later, I know damn well, even if the Redskins would have lost that game, there's no way in hell he would have been a 49er fan. He would have gone back on it. I know that for a fact now, but at the time, I was like, oh, bet you're going to be a 49er fan? Well, blah, blah, blah. But the Redskins actually ended up winning that game. And so I held my word. I tried to be a man of my word, and I went over. And honestly, I couldn't be happier. I know Niners have had a couple Super Bowl appearances, but honestly, as bad as the team has been, I have so many memories with this team and from this team that I know we'll get into in a little bit, but I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, absolutely. And mine's almost similar to yours. My dad's a Redskin fan, so it was one of the things where it's like, hey, the apple don't fall too far from the tree. And I mean, it was, I was always a kid when the school pictures had the Redskins, and obviously I'm from Virginia, so and my father's from Virginia as well. But so I was always a kid that in school pictures had a Redskin shirt with a Kool-Aid smile on his face. Matter of fact, I might pull some of those up. I think from our school pictures, and I would always have that. And it's just one of the things. It's like everything. I casually rooted for them as a child. I do recall the 99 49 that game, because that's when we won the NFC East, and I remember that game, and it was a great game. Need I say more of that? And then it's just one of the things where it morphed. Definitely, as an adult, a young adult, teenage years. That's when I really kind of start really loving this team and like following them like almost obsessively. Yeah. And then we also talk about how the quintessential moment when I really fell in love with this team, and I'll get into that in our favorite moments. So before we get to the our favorite moments, we got to definitely look back at some bad moments, some games, certain situations that just one of the things where you like it leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
Man, there's a lot over the last 20 years. Like I said, I was born in 92, so I was born 8 months and 4 days after our last Super Bowl win. So there's been a lot of bad, but one of the big ones that really stands out to me is actually really recent, just because this is when I really did start getting really, really heavy into football. For a point in time, I was a big basketball fan, but then just somehow football took over. It was our handling of RG3.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was 18, 19 years old. So I was, and that whole thing, it just left a bad taste in my mouth on RG3's end. I
Yeah.
didn't like him. I wasn't a fan of him anymore. I didn't want him to succeed anywhere. I was excited for, I think, because after we released him, he went straight to Cleveland,
Yeah.
and at the time I lived in Columbus, and so I was gonna go. I was gonna go to that game, and for whatever reason, I ended up not going. But I was gonna go to that game because that was the Kirk Cousins versus RG3 game,
Mm-hmm.
his first time again. And looking back on it now, though, and actually the other night I just watched the game against the Ravens in 2012
Oh
when
yes.
Haloti hurt his leg. I watched that game, and then I watched that wild card game against Seattle. And on like the second drive, first or second drive, is when he ended up scrambling to the sideline, got hit out of bounds, and then came up limping. And just obviously hindsight is 2020. Was just looking at that, I was like, and he still played the rest of the game. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
like Kirk Cousins was a bum. He
No.
went in the end of that Ravens game, I believe, or at least for a portion of it, played well. He started against Cleveland that year and won that game. So it's not like he couldn't. Not like he was a bum. He could have went in
Yeah.
and did what was needed to do. But just the whole handling, and then with Jay Gruden coming in, that
Yeah.
whole thing was just, it's god awful. Oh, I
Yeah.
feel so bad for him now. Like I wish nothing but the best. I love seeing him in Baltimore, and
Yeah.
I've actively been trying to get him on the show, but I'll keep tweeting him. And RG3, if you happen to see this, man, come on the show. I'd love to talk to you.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, that was definitely one of them. Next one definitely have to be Death of Sean Taylor.
Yeah.
That one,
Yeah.
it hit me really hard. I was, I think, a freshman in high school, and I had just gotten his jersey for my birthday, like 2 months prior. My birthday was
Mm-hmm.
on September 30th. I got a jersey. I got his jersey from my dad, and then 2 months later, he was
Yeah.
he was shot, and then a few days later, he ended up dying. That
Yeah.
was probably one of the hardest. That was actually when I stopped buying jerseys of current players, because I've had a bad luck with jerseys, but definitely
Yeah.
those two. Got a couple more, but I definitely want to hear some of yours. Those are definitely the two biggest that
Yeah.
come to mind, though.
I'm gonna point out three. And these are more like games, and I'm gonna I think I'm gonna keep most of my memories in the 21st century. I think when we won the first, so one of the ones that stood out for me, this was a 2001. We were playing the Cowboys on Monday Night Football, and we lost 7-9. We had a chance to win that game, and Stephen Davis fumbles, and we lose that game, and we fall to 0-5. And this was the Marty Schottenheimer year, where we started out 0-5 and then finished 8-8. That was just a really disappointing game. It was one of the things where it's like they just kept on chipping away, and I always felt in that game like we had a shot to win that game.
Yeah,
And it didn't pan out for us, and especially that costly turnover at the end. 2005. And so at this time, this is 2005 was the year we actually made the playoffs. It's actually, matter of fact, this is the first time we made the playoffs since 1999.
since that '99 season.
And so and it's crazy because, and that's one thing with these runs, it's weird. So going into the month of November, I think we ended up losing 3 straight games in November, and then so we played San Diego, the Chargers. We lost that game in overtime.
In overtime, LaDainian Tomlinson had that huge run at the end.
At the end, and it was like, it pretty much like the home run run that ended. And I remember that night, and I drove all across town, like, in just sadness. Like, I can't believe like we lost this game. We're 5-6. like our backs are against the wall, and I'm just like, my goodness, like we lost to, and that's one thing too. When you look at these type, even though that was an AFC opponent, but San Diego, and it's funny, they kind of almost similar to what they are kind of now, where they were like the measuring stick at that time. They were still a good team because remember they still had, ironically, they had Phillip Rivers and Drew Brees on that squad at that time in 2005. Really? Yeah, because Phillip Rivers was the backup. And
that's right.
And it's crazy, and that was one of the things where, because at that time I think even though San Diego didn't go to the playoffs, but what's crazy about it all is they were like, I forgot what their record was, but they were on their way to go in the playoffs, and I think they kind of took a backslide in December. But I was like, damn, we lose a game like this. I'm like, this is just this. It was really disheartening, and I remember just riding around. It probably was like a 2 or 3 good hours just riding around town and just overall sadness. And then my final one, like you said, Sean Taylor, and I think it really hit home for me because Sean Taylor's only a year older than me.
Yeah,
and for a guy to get killed at 24, and it's just like they had so much potential. It's by far it's probably one of the worst tragedies as far as Redskins related, where it's just like, it's just, oh gosh, it was just so surreal, and it was crazy because I remember that day. It's like, like almost like it was yesterday. I remember, yeah, he got shot. The home invasion. It didn't look good, and then I remember they broke in Tuesday morning around like 5:30. They just said he didn't make it. Yeah. And profound sadness. I mean, it was another like kind of one of those days where it was like a dark cloud, and it was just, and I definitely expand upon that because and actually even in that death, that's kind of became one of my favorite moments as far as how we rallied around, which we'll circle back around that.
Oh, but, yeah, we definitely will.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, that I remember I was in school, and I found out in the morning because I was in the library in the morning before school started finishing up some homework, and I had ESPN.com on a tab, and I just happened to, for some reason, I happened to switch back over just to read something real quick, and that's when I saw it breaking. Yeah. Sean Taylor had passed away, and I just kind of stood there in my chair. And I was like, man, that's damn. I didn't know what to feel. I didn't know. I was very numb at the time.
Yeah.
And especially because I will say this until the day I die, and I could just be biased. Sean Taylor, in my opinion, would have gone down as the best safety in the history of the game.
Absolutely.
You look at the way he was able to play coverage. He was able to play in the box. He played in the box a lot like Cam Chancellor. Yeah. And then he was able to cover, like a corner. I remember the game against Green Bay. He had 4 picks. Mm-hmm. That game should have had, I think, 6. He dropped a couple, but one where he was playing, he started backpedaling. He started running to the left side of the field because he saw Brett Favre looking that way. And then Brett Favre turned around and threw opposite side. And you just see Sean Taylor running all the way to the other side of the field and was able to get that pick.
Yeah. And he always had a knack for making a play on the ball, and that's why I really deemed him. He was our quarterback on the defense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
I agree with you, Rob. I mean, and to see that type of potential, and he was only 24 years old. Yeah. Like you're saying, this man would have been only 37 years old today. Yeah. Like, so like you're saying, it was just, it's just something that's just, it's just, God, it's just by far something that was just, it was so shocking. It's just, it's so sad. It was one of the by far. But it was a turning point for me. And, we'll talk about our favorite moments, but, yeah.
So I actually do have two more bad memories. Yeah. One was ultra recent, was Alex Smith breaking his leg. At first I thought he got a concussion, and so I didn't think it was that bad. When I saw him go down, I thought he had a concussion, and then I realized I think they went to the commercial and then they came back and they showed the replay one time, and just to see his leg just go the way it wasn't supposed to go was rough. And then everything coming out now about with Capri Bibbs and Jay Gruden just makes it that much worse.
Yes.
Yeah, that was one that was tough, especially with us being 6-3 at the time, first in the division.
Yes.
We didn't have a gauntlet coming up. We were in good position to win the division.
Right.
So I think we had like a 2.5 game lead on Dallas at the time.
Yeah.
And we had already beat them once prior to that. The other one is more just an embarrassing moment. Just the whole time this guy was in Washington was just one giant embarrassment. Was Albert Hainsworth.
Oh boy.
That signing.
Yes.
At the time I didn't understand it because I was still, I think, in junior high. So I didn't understand. I knew that he had a really good season in Tennessee, and so I was like, oh yeah, we got Albert Hainsworth, $100 million. Who cares? There's the thing about Dan Snyder is he really does want to win. He might be a terrible owner, but he does want to win. And he's willing to pay for it. Yeah, he overpays on washed up. He did it with Hainsworth. He did it with Deion Sanders. It's just his thing. But at the end of the day, deep down, he does want to win. But the one moment in particular, after everything of him doing the preseason stuff and finally passing his physical and his conditioning test, which I don't think he really passed. I think they just wanted him to play because they were paying him $100 million, was against Philadelphia. And it's one of the most viewed flops in football history. He gets blocked, goes down on the ground, and I don't remember if it was Donovan McNabb or Michael Vick, but whoever the quarterback was scrambling. It was in the end zone. It was inside the 10-yard line.
Yep.
And he just laid there on the floor. And McNabb or whoever the quarterback was ran by him one time, ran by him another, and he was just laying there. And I was like, looking back on it now, I was like, why?
Yeah, and the crazy thing about it is, he had a great year in Tennessee the year prior.
Yeah.
So, and that's another thing where you got to be buyer beware with these guys, where you got to look at these guys, these contract years, like what they put up, and it may not happen, for you, for his suitors, but
Yeah, but man, just the whole thing, because even if he would have done, a portion of what he did in Tennessee, it would have been okay. But he was just, from the start, it was just a bad sign. He couldn't pass his physical. His conditioning was god-awful.
Yeah.
And I think Shanahan was a coach at the time. I don't remember exactly.
Shanahan, because he gave the conditioning test.
And it was just bad all around.
It's embarrassing. That's another bad moment. It's funny. It's plenty of them. So I don't know why my mind is at a blank at this point.
Brandon's but I think overwhelmed with them.
Yeah, and I think another bad moment, I think even to go back to your point with the Alex Smith situation, where it's one of the greatest what ifs, because it's funny because we even talked about this on the previous podcast. That team still fought hard. I mean, that team still finished 7-9. I mean, we went into Jacksonville and won with a 4th-string quarterback. And honestly, and I'm always going to say this, we were Mark Sanchez him not starting to potentially be in the playoffs.
Exactly.
And that's the thing where that really messes up, because we lost to the Giants, and that was just a god-awful game. Yeah. And that was one of those where it's just like, how did this happen? And this, and like you said, and Alex Smith was another guy where I really rooted for him in San Francisco. I was so happy for him when he got Norv Turner. I figured he was going to turn around. Even when Harbaugh got there, and then he got the concussion, and then Colin Kaepernick came in.
Yeah,
I rooted for him. And then even his second stint, not second stint, but his rebirth in Kansas City, and then he comes here, and I'm like, well, he's going to be solid. We need somebody like him, as far as because his team, because at that time we still looked at this team where if they had a veteran presence, this team can make some noise.
Right.
This was this still was a kind of this team wasn't devoid of talent. They really just need pretty much essentially the right quarterback at the right time.
Right. And that was the biggest thing is Kirk Cousins was a huge question mark.
Yeah.
He played great the 2 years that he played on the tag, but he wasn't really phenomenal.
Right.
He's never won. He's up until now he's only won one primetime game.
Yeah.
He's like 1-12 in Monday night, Thursday night, and Sunday night games. So he wasn't winning them for us at all.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing. And up until that point, before we traded for Alex Smith, I was a big proponent of paying Kirk Cousins because
Me too.
at the time there wasn't anybody else.
Right.
You had nobody. You had no viable options. You could have drafted somebody you could have drafted somebody, but there's no guarantee they would have panned out. So I was all for paying them. At least we have a quarterback. And then I think we talked about it before. I was in Guam at the time. I got the text, the notification, traded for Alex Smith and sent away Kendall Fuller as well, which hurt.
Oh boy,
obviously, but we got him back though.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a huge proponent of paying Kirk Cousins. But when we got him, I was very excited because we knew he could lead a team. He did it in Kansas City for 5 years, making 4 out of 5 playoffs.
Right.
He wasn't great in the playoffs with Kansas City, which I think he would have been fine for us. I think we could have gotten a win.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, one of the biggest what ifs in probably our franchise history.
Yeah, big time. And it's funny. I mean, Jeff put up this point that he said he actually remembered the LTN in Thasman's career, and remember, it was 33 years to the date. It was the same day.
Yeah, it was
the same. It was the same day. No, it was November 8th. Was it November? It was November 18th.
Yeah, November 18th.
So, yes, and that was in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
The Thasman was in 1985 or 86. They both lost 20 to 23.
21-23.
21-23, yeah. So I think the Redskins lost to the Giants in that same score as well.
Yep.
On the very same day. 33 years to the date.
I read something, I don't know how true it is because I didn't do the research, but I read something that was shared on social media that everything was the exact same. Everything was the same. The yard line, our left tackle was out due to an injury. It was the same. The score, like everything was the exact same. And again, I don't know how true it is, but I mean, if that's up there, I figure somebody has done the research and nobody has debunked it yet. So I'm guessing it's true. But yeah, that season was such an up and down roller coaster season because we started off beating Arizona. Yep. We lost to Indianapolis the next week, and then we somehow beat Green Bay.
Yes.
And then lost a close game against the Saints, which I think that was a game where something happened in overtime. Oh
boy, that was
where it was.
That was a heartbreaker.
Kirk Cousins had thrown it out of bounds.
I do recall that it was something stupid.
He had thrown it out of bounds, and then they called for intentional grounding, something like that, or something along those lines. Right. But we should have won that game. Then we rallied off 3 in a row against Carolina, Dallas, and New York. Mm-hmm. Lost to the Falcons, got blown out by the Falcons.
Yes.
Beat Tampa Bay in that god-awful game. It was...
Oh, my God.
Ryan Fitzpatrick put up 500 yards on us. And they could not score. I know Josh Norman got a pick in the end zone.
Yeah.
I remember, I don't know if it was a runner or pass or a short pass, but somebody wide open or a huge hole took off, and then somebody, I think it was Jonathan Allen or Ryan Kerrigan, came up from behind and punched the ball out. Got it.
Yeah.
Somehow won that game. And then right after that was the Houston game where we lost Alex Smith, and we lost 4 in a row. Houston, Dallas, Philly, New York. Beat Jacksonville, close game against the Titans, and then finish off the season with the loss to Philly. That season was rough.
Right. It was, yeah. And it had so much promise.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, too. Right. It had so much promise.
Because Adrian Peterson was playing great that year. He wasn't the MVP Peterson, but he was doing enough.
He was solid.
He was solid. And we still had Jordan Reed, who for the most part was playing that season.
Yep.
And it was just the quarterback play because the next game against Dallas, we ended up losing Colt McCoy.
Yeah.
To a broken leg as well. And then that's when we had signed Mark Sanchez that week just as a backup. Then we had to go and get Josh Johnson from the AAF. And yeah, he was able to pull out a win against Jacksonville, but that was
Right.
it.
And that was
rough.
it.
It was a rough season.
Right. Yeah. So let's get to our favorite moments. We got to get to that.
Yeah. Let's start some good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the first one I have on here, winning the division 2012.
Yes.
Because we started the season 3-6. RG3's rookie season. That first game against New Orleans was great. You know, we got the iconic Griffining, his very first touchdown.
Yeah.
Got hit, him just sitting on the grass, hands in the air. You know, started the season 3-6 and capped off 6 straight wins, ending with a win against Dallas in DC to win the division, make the playoffs, which was great. That was my first time seeing us win the division.
Yeah.
Actually seeing it and being a part of it and realizing it. My next one is the wild card game against Tampa Bay back in 2005.
Oh, yes.
Went into Tampa Bay, and I think that was the first playoff game. That's where I really kind of fell in love with the game, fell in love with the team, because like I said, I was with my mom on the weekends, and that day I went home to my dad's. I went to my dad's early because I usually went back on Sunday night for school throughout the week. But I went home early that day specifically to watch the game with him. And it was just a great game. We played great in all aspects. Offense, defense, special teams. That was a game that I think Sean Taylor spit in somebody's face or somebody spit in Sean Taylor's face.
And
And then I think Sean Taylor spit in his face, and then he got
Pittman. I think was it Michael Pittman? No, that might have been his. Pittman. I think it might have been Michael Pittman. Come to think about it, because it was a running back.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it. Because I'm thinking it was Michael Pittman. It was Michael Pittman. Yeah, it was Michael Pittman. Because sometimes how sometimes you mix up errors, but I was like, it was Michael Pittman. Yep.
That was definitely one of the, and then obviously went to Seattle the following week and lost there in a rainy game. Number 3 though was the season that Sean Taylor was murdered.
Yeah.
We capped off that season. I know we lost the very first game to Buffalo on some weird Joe Gibbs called 2 timeouts in a row.
Yeah, he froze the kicker twice.
Yeah, it was bad, but the very first play against Buffalo, we ran. We're on defense 10. For the first play. We ran with 10 guys, and we gave up, I think, 15, 18 yards, but it was all good. But that last game against Dallas, a lot of our stuff comes against Dallas, though. Last game of the season against Dallas, we beat Dallas to get that wild card spot, and we actually ended up beating them by 21 points, which was Sean's number, his final number.
Yeah.
That was really cool, and everybody just putting up the 2-1 when they realized we'd beat them by 21 points, making them playoffs, and that was great.
Yeah. All right. So, okay. Yeah. So, one of my favorite moments, and I go back to like the 2007 season, and I will always say this. I will always say that 2007 Redskins team was by far the most talented we've ever had in this modern era. That team, I still even have a coffee mug that I cherish to this day. I would never, ever drink out of that mug again for the rest of my life. That team was just so special to me. Like you said, Sean passes away. We go to Buffalo. We play Buffalo, we lose. Mm-hmm. We bury Sean on a Monday. We go to Soldier Field on Thursday night. Jason Campbell gets hurt. Todd Collins from Michigan University, a Michigan man, comes and we beat them. Then, we reeled out some teams, and I remember that Sunday night before Christmas, we went to Minnesota and we shut them down.
Yep.
And I was like, that team, that's when I really, truly fell in love with that team. That team just had so much poise, so much stuff, so much adversity happened. in that season. It's almost like what could have went wrong. Your best player dies.
Yep.
Your best player gets murdered. You go into a situation. You know, you go into Soldier Field on a Thursday night, 3 days after you bury your best player. You come in with the focus. You come in with a determination. You come in out with a victory. And that's one of those things where it's just like if you're a fan of any team that is a quintessential moment where you know what, when this team is their back against the wall, this team is going to perform. And it's just one of those moments where it galvanized everybody. I know, and if it galvanized me, it galvanized the whole entire nation. And it was just such a good, talented team. Like you said, we went to Dallas, and you know, not that, you know, we came to Dallas, you know, they came to us, and they lost by 21. And then, you know, then what was the heartbreaking thing was it was over. We went to Seattle and we just ran out of gas. And that's when I think it was literally, I feel like that team was just so special. And it wasn't even like, it was sad because the year was over, the finale of it. And it was just like, it was just one hell of a run. And it was just like to a point where even though, you know, we didn't get to where we wanted to go, but I was just so happy I was a part of that run.
Yeah.
I was a part of it.
That was, we finished off 4 wins in a row.
Yeah.
And that Seattle game, it was a lot closer than the score showed, because we ended up losing that game 35-14. But I remember at that point, I think we were down 17-0 or down something, like we were not playing well, and it was raining. We weren't playing well. And then I think I ended up going to the store real quick. I walked over to the store. I came back and it was, I think 14-17, 13-17, something like that. We were right back in it, and obviously we know what happened, and it sucked, but it was amazing though.
It was incredible. It's just it was great to be a part of that ride. I think one of my favorite moments was 2012. Going back to your point as well, where, you know, that was the first time we actually won the division.
Mm-hmm.
Won the division since 1999. And that was another roller coaster year. But I loved about that year was I knew we were going to be in every game. And that's the weird thing about it all, where, you know, in certain years I'm like, okay, well, you know, it depends. But I was like, every game I knew in that year, we were going to be in games, because what was weird, and it's funny because what was the weird thing about that team was, because prior to it, they were like one of the worst teams that converted on third down. Like, I know they were like at the bottom half of the league, but I was like, the way we were able to convert on third downs at that particular time, I'm like, we're going to be in games.
Yeah.
I knew from there, I was like, even from the jump, I'm like, we'll be in games. Like, that's, you know, we'll be in games just for the simple fact that we're able to move the football. And then what was weird about it all, I think we had like a +10 like turnover margin that year, which that's rare. That rarely happens. You know, you don't equate a, you know, our beloved team to have a +10 turnover margin. Like, and I've always said, if you're a +10 turnover margin, you're a 10 plus wins team.
Yep.
Like, you know, you can be a Super Bowl contender kind of sense. But yeah.
Right.
What is another all the favorite moments that I experienced? And it was kind of more, this was like a personal one. And it was funny because in 2015, matter of fact, this was the year that we actually won a division as well. We went to Philly the day after Christmas and kicked their ass.
Yeah, I was at home for that game, and actually my biological mother and her husband are both Eagles fans.
Oh wow!
So we went out that night to go watch the game, and that was great. That was great being there, because there was a bunch of Eagles fans there, and it was me and like maybe 6 other Skins fans, and the whole time we were just talking shit. except for when Kirk Cousins kneeled at the 2 to end the half.
Yes. And and it's funny, we talked about that last week. We were like,
we did.
What was he thinking?
Yeah, it was bad. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead and finish.
It's all good. Point. So in 2015, the beginning was rough. We lost to Miami. And it was to a point where everybody was just giving up. So the next week we ended up we played the Rams. So, I go to the game. It's the most weirdest thing. I go to the game. It's kind of like gloomy, cloudy. I knew it wasn't going to rain. It's just a cloudy day. So, so we were walking in the stadium and everything. And you're hearing this guy like almost like kind of like a calypso type of, like music in a sense. Then I heard something about everything's gonna be all right. And then I'm just looking at him like, man, we're gonna about to lose this game. But then lo and behold, we beat them. And I'm telling you, it felt, and then it felt like the sun came out. It was just the most weirdest thing. Like the sun came out. And we won, and it was just such a euphoric feeling, like to kind of get that monkey off our back at that time. Because, at that time, you losing to Miami, and, team that we should have demolished at that time. Yeah. And it's just like, then you go to this scenario when you're playing the Rams, where you're like, okay, well, the Rams are kind of like on our level at that particular time we envisioned. And it's just like, oh, we're going to lose. And it's just like, that's going to happen. Then another favorite classic moment for me, and this is another, and it's funny, it's funny that we go back to these playoff years. 2005, Monday Night Football, it's September of 2005. The Dallas Cowboys held a 13-0 lead. And then lo and behold, Mark Brunell, a.k.a. Lil Michael Vick, comes out of nowhere. Those 2 bombs to Santana Moss. And we won that game by 1 point. We give the Gatorade shower to Coach Gibbs.
That was actually going to be my next, because I still have 3 more all-time favorite times. That was going to be my second favorite moment, because I definitely remember that game. That I remember it like it was yesterday. Yeah, just sitting there down 13-0, thinking, man, we weren't doing anything on offense. And just out of nowhere, just 2 bombs to Santana. 2
bombs, and then remember, people got to fail to realize Mark Brunell did like a little Michael Vick scramble. Too, I was like, oh, look at little Vic. That
game was, that was one of my favorite games of all time.
I loved it. And Mark Brunell was one of those guys too, where it was like he was a guy I really liked, and he was perfect at that particular time when we needed him.
Yeah, he was coming off that season in Jacksonville, and I don't remember if we traded for him or if they let him go, but he was still a very good quarterback.
Yeah,
I remember that year. I think that year was the year that the Patriots and Eagles played in the Super Bowl the first time.
Yep.
It was in Jacksonville, and I kept messing with my dad. I was like, "Oh, there's gonna be Mark Brunell's going back to Jacksonville. He's gonna win the Super Bowl in his old stadium."
Yes.
Obviously, that didn't happen, but yeah, that was one of my all-time favorite games. Whenever it pops up on my timeline, whenever I share it or somebody else shares it, I always watch it because it was a great thing. One of my other favorite memories was, I joined the Navy in 2012. Shortly after I got to my first boat, they sent me to school in Norfolk. So I spent a month there for school. And I think on a Wednesday or Thursday, I was driving by one of the centers, and I saw a sign that said that I thought I had seen it say something about Redskins on Friday. So I went in and turned around and kind of parked across the street so I can read all the revolving messages on there. And sure enough, that Friday, Redskins players were going to be at the center at 10 a.m. I was like, I started thinking, how am I going to get out of school? Because I was in class that day. I was like, how am I going to get out of class? I got to come up with something. and I wasn't the finesser I am today, so it was becoming difficult. But for some reason, the teacher at like 8:45 was like, "Yeah, you guys are good. Go home." It was a Friday. Go home. So I was like, "Bet." So when I got something to eat, went real quick. I got to meet Daryl Young,
Nice.
Lorenzo Alexander, D'Angelo Hall. He was one of the
Yes.
players there, and then I had to meet a couple other guys. They were older players, retired players. I can't for the life of me cannot remember who they are right now. But whether this is a good or bad memory, it ties in. But I also met Bruce Allen, so
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure. But actually,
Oh boy.
forgive my hair. I did not do my
Yeah.
hair because I purposely decided to wear this hat. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's Daryl Young right there,
Yeah.
D Hall right there,
Yeah.
and Lorenzo Alexander right there.
Yes.
And then the other two signatures are on the bills. And again, Bruce Allen right there.
Oh boy. So you have a Bruce. Oh wow. So we both have a Bruce Allen story. Oh my god. The nights get even better.
I'm excited to hear yours. But yeah, I got to end. D'Angelo Hall was rough because obviously he was outside of RG3. That was the premier player on our team at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was there, and everybody. I was just in this crowd. I was just in this crowd trying to get his signature, and I was able finally to get it and get a picture with him. And then one other guy that was there, he wasn't able to get his signature or a picture. And so when everybody's like, okay, it's done, everybody's leaving, D'Angelo Hall left. And dude was like, damn, I didn't get a picture with him. That's the one guy I wanted to. I was like, bro, let's go. I got you. Didn't have no idea who this guy was. Never spoke to him. I've never seen him since, not to my knowledge anyways. We just run out the back door. D Hall, D Hall, D Hall. And he turned around, he was like, hey, my guy didn't get a picture. Can we get a picture real quick? He's like, yeah. So we're able to get him a picture as well. And it was just cool. That was definitely, but my all-time favorite memory, the one and only game I've been to at FedEx Field. I've been to 2 Redskins games. One up in Cleveland was a preseason game, but I went to the game against Tampa Bay in 2014. That was the year that Tampa Bay went 2-14. They had right before they drafted Marcus or not Mariota. What's the other bum from that draft class? Jameis Winston.
Jameis Winston, yeah.
They drafted Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
But I picked that game because it was Tampa Bay. They were garbage that year, and so were we. But I thought, if we're going to win any game that year, it's going to be that game. I'm definitely going to that game. And I lived in Columbus. It was a 6-hour drive. So I was like, so I bought tickets and we went. I was my wife at the time. So we went. We got straight mollywopped on that game, man. It was rough. But we did score 1 touchdown. I think it was a little dump pass to Chris Thompson. And it was like a 17-yard touchdown pass. And when they scored, singing "Hail to the Redskins" at FedEx Field, that was the only time I've ever been able to do it. And the fact that I was able to do that at least once in my life, because we're never going to be able to sing that song again.
I know.
And that was for sure one of the best times that I've ever had. Actually, it is the best moment of my life as a Washington fan, was being able to sing "Hail to the Redskins" with 80,000 other Redskins fans.
Yeah, and like you said, and that's one thing too. I think you would get lost in all of this. It's just the sense of the community, tradition. All these things come into factor. Where, like you're saying, these are moments that will forever leave a mark. Leave a mark in our memories. Yeah, and it's just it's one thing where it's kind of it's low key difficult. When you sit down and you think about it, like of how these traditions that we've in essence kind of have started, they will always continue, but it'll be in a different way. Which I think a lot of people, that's one thing too, where talking about this tonight, it's more therapeutic, more so than anything. But so the Bruce Allen story. So I'm very fortunate. I live in Virginia. Actually, I live in Richmond, Virginia, which used to be the home of our beloved Skins training camp. Yeah. So the beauty of it all was they had a lot of events that that took place. So of a luncheon at my old elementary school. Shout out to LeBronham Elementary. So I got wind of it. So it's Bruce Allen was there. Doug Williams. I was able to meet Doug Williams.
Dope.
I don't know if you remember our PR guy Tony Wiley.
I do.
And funny about all that, with Tony Wiley, like when I talked to him and everything, he was really impressed that I knew who he was, and that's what I loved about Tony Wiley, where it was almost like, how some people, they know who they are, but but he doesn't show it. Like,
right,
PR guy. I'm a fan. I love this team, so I'm gonna know I know the inner workings. So, and then it's one of the things where it's like, it was kind of cool to try to chop it up with him, and he was like kind of more so like appreciative, like, oh man, that's cool, like, that's that you're a fan, that me, because I'm just a guy who you see essentially coming out the tunnel, essentially, guy, most people wouldn't know as far as if you're just like a casual run of the mill fan. So, and I got a kick out of just meeting him. And then Doug Williams, another one where it was just like, and it was cool, he dapped me up, almost like a pro hug, and it was really cool. And I actually took a picture with him, and I actually got a picture with Bruce Allen. So Bruce Allen, all right. Our initial interaction was a little frosty, to say the least. But he kind of opened up to me. I was like, hey, how you doing, Mr. Allen? He kind of looked at me like, why you, almost kind of like that. But then we kind of talked like briefly. Mm-hmm. And then, it was frosty, to say the least, in the beginning. But for the most part, he was, a really good guy. I liked because he was like, it was more like because the luncheon was more like kind of a private kind of thing, but it was open. It was weird. It was weird, like because it was reported that they were going to be there. A lot of people wasn't there, which was great. Have a set like that where you had the opportunity to kind of talk to them kind of one-on-one, maybe for like a minute or so, versus like a high and by in most circumstances. And Bruce Allen, he had a great riveting speech. I mean, he won me over. That was in 2014. Like, if he would have told me the culture was damn good in 2014, I would have drunk the culture as damn good Kool-Aid. Oh, and the thing with Bruce is a very, like, because he talked about, because obviously his father was the great George Allen, the coach, right, of the Redskins. And he talked about a lot of his principles, a lot of the future is now. And he talked about just a lot of, it was a very eloquent speech that he kind of talked about. It's more so just like, almost like trying to capture the moment in its present sense more than anything. And that was the one thing that really, it was he did a very great job speaking, and kind of talked about kind of put us behind the curtain of certain decisions that he made during that offseason, where he actually, surprisingly, he opened the floor to questions. And I was just like, okay, Bruce. So, it's like, yeah, I swear if he would have, I would have been drinking the culture is good Kool-Aid. He had me that day.
Yeah.
He had me that day.
That was right. Scott McLaughlin's. I think that was his first year there. So I definitely would have been drinking that Kool-Aid too, because at that time I had great optimism for our team. Man, I wouldn't be mad at you then, but knowing what we know now, obviously much different. But that's cool that we both have that story. Yeah, I wish actually I was able to find the pictures. So I'm gonna.
Oh yes, sir. That's what's up.
D Hall. In fact, and then my picture of Bruce Allen right there.
Bruce. Oh man, I wish I had my phone with me, man. Because matter of fact, you know what? Because it might be on my Instagram. Yeah, we gonna be. This is gonna be classic. But yeah, and that's another thing too, where it was just like you saying, these moments are just and it's just so cool to look back at these things and just and like saying these are just such great moments
Right.
that we were able to to actually capture, and it's amazing where like and now the ability for us to trade Bruce Allen stories, like
Right.
this is hilarious to me, like, but yeah, and it's just that's another thing too where, and it was and it's obviously it's more great stories that as far as great moments in my our beloved Skins history.
Mhm.
So let's talk about the moments. Let's talk about coaches and personality. Who the guys that you really like gravitated to?
So, personalities. This one was tough because I'm only 27. I didn't really start following the team until the early 2000s. So, and one of my earliest memories of the team was hiring Steve Spurrier. I remember seeing that on SportsCenter. My dad explaining to me, great college coach, and he's going to be good for the team. Which obviously we know how that happened. Favorite coaches would probably have to be anybody who coached under Sean McVay or under Jay Gruden.
Yeah,
because they all have turned out to. I mean, two of them already have Super Bowl appearances. One of them has two. Matt LaFleur was a game away from the Super Bowl, so we're one game away from having three of our coaches under Jay Gruden having Super Bowl appearances.
Yeah.
But personalities, Sean Taylor's personality was what's the word I'm looking for? It was contagious.
Yes.
I know at the beginning it wasn't all that, especially with the media. He had his problems with the media at one point, but his personality on the field, just his individuality. Remember the game? I think it was a game against Green Bay where he put the tape on the face mask.
Yes. Yes.
I think Joe Gibbs was like, "Hey, you need to get that shit off of there. We're not putting that on there." So the equipment manager went and changed out the face mask, and then he went and just put tape on it again. And at that point, it was already started the game. There was nothing they were going to do about it. Another person that I really enjoyed was Clinton Portis. I loved his interviews and all his costumes. That one year, he would come a different costume every interview. And that was great. I remember that very vividly. But honestly, my favorite coach of all time would have to be Joe Gibbs.
Yeah.
He's the only one that we really had, success under, with the exception of the 2 years under 1 year under Jay Gruden and the couple years under Mike Shanahan. But other than that, we haven't had great coaches since Dan Snyder bought the team. We had Marty Schottenheimer for that 1 year. He went 8-8, and you alluded to that year where we rallied off to finish the season 8-8, and it's like 6 or 7 wins in a row, finished 8-8, and that was kind of, and then they fired him in favor of Steve Spurrier. But I'm looking at that picture of you and Doug Williams.
I'm out my back.
No, you're good.
I'm sure that man you, but yeah.
I would like to meet Doug Williams. Those are my. Obviously, I haven't been following the team as long as you have. I'm sure you can go back a little bit further than I can.
I love it, yeah, and I'll say I'm gonna definitely keep it in the 21st century. I think my favorite coaches, and the crazy thing about it is, I actually liked every coach we've had. I loved Marty Schottenheimer. I really think, honestly, he should have got more of a. He should have got a second season. But
absolutely.
Let me really run it back. North Turner, even to this day, the fact that he got fired like the 15th week of the season in 2000, that still irks me to this day, and that's almost 21 years ago. That still irks me. I hated the fact that they got rid of him, and we were in the middle of a playoff run.
Mm-hmm.
And
because they fired him when he was 7-6 when he got fired.
Yes, right. He was right. And I'm like, why did we get rid of him? I liked him. I liked Schottenheimer. Schottenheimer was a great coach. Steve Spurrier, he was just more of a gimmick to me. I didn't respect him per se. Like he was just an old ball coach, and he was like, because at that time, hiring college coaches was like, what the hell are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
at that time, it was like frowned upon. Not frown. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, that's even a perfect word for it. It was frowned upon. Of course, I love Joe Gibbs. I think that was such a great hire to get him in. We had 2 great playoff runs. Jim Zorn. This is actually a Jim Zorn. This hoodie that I'm wearing today is actually a byproduct of the Jim Zorn era. So Jim Zorn, he was more for me was sympathy. I think the fact that they hired Foster as initially as the offensive coordinator, and then all that kind of went to shit essentially, and then it's almost like Jim Zorn was essentially, because we were supposed to be like the quarterback coach, or it was something like that, and he ended up being thrust into this position that he wasn't there. Shanahan, I figured Shanahan was gonna be, Shanahan was there, and I love Shanahan. I like Shanahan because I'm actually taller than Mike Shanahan. And so, I mean, that's another thing where you're like, okay, wow, Coach Shanahan is really short. Because I remember, and that's another thing too, and it's one thing too, and I liked that staff as well, because when I was telling you about training camp, so we had training camp, and I volunteered the very first year. So I was able to go on the field maybe a few days while I was working. So, I would see the coaching staff, and they'll speak, and Cal was, and that's why the people are always like, you always talk about Cal so highly. What's up with you and Cal? Like, well, I think because Cal is a genuinely, even though I'm only, it's more like high and bad. Like, I don't really interacted maybe like 2 or 3 times when I was at the camp, but he always was like very gracious to be like, hey, what's up, man? Good morning, how you doing? Like this and the third, and and I'm always about, it's like how we raised. You tell people good morning. You tell people you speak. And, so it's one of the things where you look at the type of stuff where, he ain't have to, say nothing to me. I was just there working, just there to help make sure that, the field was straight or whatever, make sure, everything was good. He ain't have to speak to me. And, and that was cool. And then and that's another thing too. I like Coach Shanahan, and of course, and Cal. I always thought Cal was going to be the next one. I was like, there was no shadow of no doubt that I knew Cal. What he's doing now was never like in question to me. I knew Cal was destined to be in this position.
Yeah, the way he was able to essentially, he didn't really change the playbook all that much, or the schemes really, but he was able to change it just enough to get RG3 to get those 6 wins and make the playoffs. So, and what he was able to do with Kirk Cousins as well. Like we knew from when he was in Washington, he was going to be a head coach eventually at some point.
Absolutely.
Just that whole coaching, or after Shanahan left, that whole coaching staff. I think even Sean McVay was on the staff at the time too.
Yes, I think Sean McVay at that time. At one point, I know he was a tight ends coach. At one point, I think that might have been like the first. Because I remember he ended up being the quarterback coach because somebody left. Because he ended up being the quarterback coach, I think, RG3's second year.
Because I remember at one point he was like the quality control coach too.
Right. He's been all over the place.
Yeah,
right.
But and then Matt LaFleur as well. Like that the whole tree was amazing. We got stuck with Jay Gruden, Mr. Pimp Daddy himself.
Yes, and Jay Gruden is funny because I only liked him because what's funny with me in this, he was the perfect like theater of mind. Whereas like if you close your eyes, you're like, man, he sounds just like John.
Yeah.
And it's like in my mind, like I'm hearing these press conferences, and closing my eyes, I'm here for him to get ready to say banana white,
Banana Whitegate, or
yeah, right.
yeah, Spider Whitegate banana, Spider White banana.
I'm ready for him to say, right. But yeah, Jay was Jay. Jay,
No other way to put it.
yeah, Jay was Jay. I'm just really shocked out of all the coaches that we talked about, he had the longest leash. That's another thing that was like, huh? Like, we've had legendary coaches. We had Marty Schottenheimer. He only lasted for a year.
Yeah.
Like, we've had, wow. Like, this it trips me out. Personality wise, I like the guy. I love B Mitch because B Mitch tells it straight. That's why I love the post game shows.
Yeah,
post and pre-game shows. He just keeps it a buck. And I actually met him too. He was and that's the thing that I loved about having the training camp here, because like he was at a baseball game, signing autographs. And I was like, okay, well, is B Mitch night? Oh, I'm in there. Like, I think,
right.
And of course, as a Redskin fan, I was like one of the first ones in there. Like, I was waiting. I was like, I want to, I want to be one of the first ones to go.
Right.
Take a picture and, chop it up for a few seconds. But, yeah. That's one thing, too, where it's really, it was, it was cool. Clinton Portis, definitely the personality-wise, with the outfits. And he really, and it's funny because at that time, I felt like we needed that type of leadership, in a sense where we needed that type of comic relief, because a lot of it was just,
it was rough at that time.
Yeah, it was really rough. And in that time, and R.I.P. Joe Bugle. Joe Bugle is so animated, and it used to trip me out. And a guy who I really loved, Danny Smith. Remember our special teams coach, Danny Smith?
Vaguely.
And he was amazing. I loved him as well. Like, it was. I mean, we've had some great, coaches, personalities on this team. And it's just, I mean, it was great. It was, it was just amazing.
Yeah. Thing with Jake Gruden was that I think he tried to do the whole, this is a fun atmosphere, because there's that gif all the time of Deshaun Jackson pinching his nipples.
Yeah.
But eventually it just led to him losing the team, because everything is all fun and games when you're winning, but once things start going downhill, then you start to realize, okay, is this man really the right man for the job? And Jay Gruden is just he's a coordinator. We talked about this, I think, on our Sunday sit down, our first conversation we had. Jay Gruden was just he's a coordinator. Some people are just meant to be coordinators. Some people are born to be head coaches. Jay Gruden's a coordinator. I've no doubt in my mind that he's going to do great things in Jacksonville, as long as nobody gets at his side pieces, and he's able to keep that in order right now. But he's going to do great.
Yeah, I think he will be in too. Yeah, I think I'm definitely gonna be interested in how he's gonna mesh with issue. Like, that's I think I think it's gonna work. I mean,
it will.
Yeah,
because Gardner Minshew is a lot like Kirk Cousins.
Mm-hmm.
He's for the most part, he's a pocket passer, but he's athletic enough to get out in the pocket and scramble when he needs to be. He just needs to make better decisions than Kirk Cousins.
Right, and he will.
Yeah.
All right. Favorite players?
Oh, hands down, Sean Taylor, without a doubt. He will forever be my favorite player.
Yes.
Watching him, I've already given examples of his athleticism. I think in 2015 or 2014 or 2015, it was 2014. When I lived in Columbus, my dad, my stepmom, and my siblings all came out to visit me. And so we all went up to Canton. We all went to the Hall of Fame, and we were able to go on the field, on the Hall of Fame field, and I stepped onto the field because we went into the stands, and they gave a great history of the Hall of Fame and the whole history of the league and the high school team that plays there, and obviously they brought up the Hall of Fame game.
Yeah.
and they let us go on the field for about 30 minutes and just stepping onto the field. And first thing I thought was Sean Taylor stepped on this field. His very first NFL game was right here on this field.
Yes.
And just I got chills, like the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and it was just a surreal feeling.
Yeah.
Knowing that I think I was on the side, I don't know for sure, but just the fact that I was on the same field, that I had to have stepped somewhere where Sean Taylor has stepped. I was in the shadow of greatness at that time.
Absolutely.
It was a cool feeling. Second favorite player is Clinton Portis. No doubt. So Clinton Portis, I remember when we traded for him, because my second Redskins jersey after my Heath Schuler jersey when I was a baby was Champ Bailey. Yes. My biological mother gotten it for me, and that was my first jersey. And I think a couple years later, we traded him to Denver for Clinton Portis, and I was not a fan, because at that time I didn't understand corners are, especially at that time, they're a dime a dozen. You can get them almost anywhere at that time, but running backs, because this was right in the middle of the, you had Portis, you had Daniel Tomlinson, what's to do, Curtis Martin,
yes.
So you had great running backs. Running backs were the premier. That was the premier position. If you had a solid running back, you could do a lot with that team. So I wasn't happy about it. But my dad explained it to me. I remember it was in junior high, my 7th grade year. We're heading to the driving range. We're going golfing, and it was against Tampa Bay. And Clinton Portis' very first carry as a Redskin was a 75-yard touchdown run.
Yeah.
I remember hearing it on the radio, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and I'll never forget the words he said. He said, "That is why we traded for him."
And you know what's funny? I was so pissed because, and it's funny, and I was almost in the opposite, in the kind of inverse of how you thought. Because I always thought Clinton Portis at that time was a system back. Because remember, this is This is Mike Shanahan. Because remember, Orlandis Gary had like 1,000 yards. Terrell Davis had 2,000. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, we gonna get a system running back, and for a shutdown corner. And it's funny, and it's like, it's funny. It worked out because we knew Champ wanted out anyway. So. Mm-hmm. It's just one of the things where it's like you take it with a grain of salt, but yeah.
That was my very first. That was like that changed my whole perspective on not only the team positions. That became my favorite position. 26 became my favorite number. So any chance I got to wear 26, that was my number. Still to this day, when I on my superstar mode on Madden I'm always 26. I don't remember who brought it up, but somebody had mentioned that their Art Monk and Gary Clark were their favorite players.
Yeah.
There we go. So quick, I never met Gary Clark, but I have met his brother.
Really?
I was stationed in Jacksonville, Florida at the time.
Yeah.
And I got on base one weekend to go work out at the gym, and I was wearing a Redskins t-shirt, which I do most of the time. And he goes, "Oh, you're a Redskins fan?" And I always hate that question. When wearing something Redskins, "Oh, you're a Redskins fan?"
Right.
No, I just choose to live miserably for 20 years of my life.
Right.
He's like, "Oh, you're a Redskins fan?" I was like, "Yeah, diehard. Been since I was a kid." He said, Gary Clark. I said, "Oh, the posse. Gary Clark, Art Monk, the whole posse."
Boy.
He's like, "Yeah." Pulls out his phone. He's like, "Yeah, there, boom." I was like, "Dang, how you know Gary Clark?" "I'm his brother."
Whoa, get out of here.
I was like, "No way." I was at the gym a total of that day for 4 hours.
Nice.
3 of those was just talking to him.
Nice.
Just talking to his brother. It was so dope. And I wish I would have started podcasting sooner, because I could have reached out to him and gotten Gary Clark on here. It would have been dope. Would have been so dope. Absolutely. But yeah, I got to meet his brother. And then my third favorite player is RG3.
Yeah.
Even, all things considered, what he went through with his team and the injuries, the mishandling. After he tore his ACL, he was on that road to rehab. It was everything that he did was, I don't want to say it was mismanaged, because it wasn't, but it was just everything together because he had that ESPN special of him in his recovery. And then that's when his brand came out, his deal with Adidas. He had his own brand, and it seemed like he was focused more on his branding and his image more than getting back onto the field. And then that special came out, and then you had the reports of him basically jumping chain of command, going straight to Dan Snyder and saying, "Hey, I'm not running these plays. I don't care what Mike Shanahan says. I don't care what Con Shanahan says.
Yep.
You know, I'm not running these plays. I want to be a passer," because they had that zone scheme, which was great at the time.
Yeah, it was great
when you had a running quarterback like RG3, because that speed was second to none at that time. You figured the fastest quarterbacks in history probably Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson, and RG3.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody had that. He had that stigma of, you know, he's a running quarterback. He's not a true pocket passer, and he didn't like it. His ego got the better of him, or not his ego, but it started to get to him. You could tell, and he didn't want to have. He wanted to be viewed as a quarterback because he went through the same thing getting recruited out of high school. He had other offers other than Baylor, other big schools, but they wanted him to sign as an athlete, not as a quarterback. They want him at receiver. They want to try him at at different speed positions, at skill positions. And he was dead set on being a quarterback. And he initially committed to Houston because that's where Art Briles was at the time, at University of Houston. So he committed with them. And then, in fact, I think the 3 D1 offers he had was Houston, Baylor, and actually Stanford, believe it or not. But that was also the same class. He was in the same recruiting class as Andrew Luck. And Luck had already committed to there. Excuse me. And he knew that him going in, who's not widely viewed as a true pocket passer quarterback, who other schools want him to run a skill position, going into Stanford with Andrew Luck, there's no way he was winning that job.
Absolutely.
His best case scenario for him was to wait the 3 years that Andrew Luck played, learn under him, and then he would get that 1 year as a senior, which he didn't want to do. So then he ended up committing to Houston and then going over to Baylor after Art Briles got the job at Baylor. Yeah, he wanted to be a passer, and respect to him for wanting to elevate his game. And yeah, hindsight is 2020. He could have done it a better way. He could have gone about it differently, sitting down with Mike and what have you. But all that's in the past. But he's still one of my favorite players.
Yeah,
run against Minnesota, which I think
yes, indeed.
That quarterback draw was just was one of my favorite plays from him, and he definitely top 3 favorite players of all time.
Yeah. A lot of guys I got on this list. I'm gonna start with the meat potato guys. I used to love our offensive line with Gibbs, guys like John Jansen, another Michigan man. Randy Thomas, he was my guy. Chris Samuels, those are the guys. And it's funny because I remember they used to do, they used to do like a Monday night show. They would like preview the Monday night football games or whatever. And I remember, I liked how they broke down the games, and just everything, how they broke it down X and O's wise. A guy, I'm going to tell you, some real stuff. I literally wanted to be the president of this man's fan club. I will go down to me as one of the best backups we had in our history, barring setbacks he had in his life. Colt Mother and Brennan. You remember Colt? We gotta remember Colt Brennan.
I remember Colt Brennan. He was
from Hawaii.
He set the record, and because they were playing but he didn't even do anything though.
No, but remember he balled out in that Hall of Fame game when we played the Colts.
Yeah, you're right.
Right, but I'm just saying, how there are guys who don't see the field that I'm like, I like this dude. I just like his personality. I like everything about him. He was one of those guys where if he would have seen the field, I loved Colt Brennan. Even in the short sample size that I did get from him, I was like, you know what? I like Colt Brennan.
Yeah, I remember him at Hawaii because I'm from Fresno, so Fresno State is in the same conference as Hawaii, so we play them
Yep.
every year. And just I watched them, and that was the year that I think they played Georgia in one of the BCS games
Yeah.
and got
Mm-hmm.
steamrolled by them. But yeah, I definitely remember
Yes.
Colt
Yes.
Brandon. We drafted him, I
Yeah.
think, the 5th round, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked it at the time because I didn't fully understand. I just thought, hey, you're a good quarterback in college. You're gonna be a good quarterback in the NFL, which clearly we know is not the case. But yeah, I definitely
Yeah.
remember Colt Brandon. That's funny that you say
Yeah.
that name because he definitely did not come to mind.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's one of the things where it's just like, and it's one thing too where I love how the fact they always say like your backup quarterback is by far like the most popular player on your
The
team.
most popular player on the team. Yep.
So right. I like of course the other quarterbacks, RG3 and Kirk Cousins. I think I like them both equally. RG3, the thing about RG3, I just like the fact, in the beginning, like the whole thing of the hope. Remember the hope poster? Because remember,
Yeah.
it's funny. All this, and it's funny, and I don't want to mix politics in. And it was perfect because it was a election year as well. So we looked at it like, okay, well, we actually might have some hope and for our beloved team. He brought so much excitement even in that 1 year. And it's just one of the things where it's like good, bad, or indifferent. He provided us with some great memories that year. And that's just stuff that I will always remember. Kurt. And going back to your point in the beginning, I remember he went to Cleveland. A nice, brisk, cold day in Cleveland. Kirk Cousins bombs away, throws play action passes from here to Cincinnati. He was that boy was throwing some great, throwing that pigskin on the banks of Lake Erie.
Yep.
On a cold afternoon in Cleveland. That boy was special that night.
Yeah, one of my favorite Kirk Cousins memories though, is definitely the game against Green Bay.
Yes.
When it was a windy night, it was cold. I think it was either late November, early December, somewhere around there. And he just went and balled out.
Yes.
In high winds, and we just steamrolled Green Bay.
Oh yes, and I remember that, Rob, because that was right before Thanksgiving.
Yep.
And I remember oh my God, that Sunday night football game, the band was playing Hail to the Redskins all night. And it just felt so good. Like,
yeah,
it was, oh my God, I remember that too.
Because that game was kind of that game was a litmus test for us. Like we showed promise, and other games we slipped up. We kind of played down to the competition, and that was the game that it was one of those, like, if we could, that was going to show what we were truly made of. That was going to show what type of team we were. Ended up going, winning that game. And I think that was the year that we tied with Cincinnati.
Oh God!
And ended up missing the playoffs.
Yes,
because that was the year that me and my wife we became really good friends, and she's from Ohio, so she grew up a Bengals fan.
Yeah,
and remember that game. I was like, remember before the season, the schedule came out, and I saw it was going to be a home game or a game at Cincinnati. But I'm going 2 hours away. I'm there. Then like a week later, they announced it's going to be the London game.
Oh,
I was like,
yeah.
I was like, yeah, I ain't got money like that. I can't go to London for that. So me and my wife, we made a little bet. I forgot what the bet was. But we were like, yeah, let's just bet this real quick. I think we bet lunch or something like that. And I had made a joke before the game started. Was this game's going to end up in a tie? Because why not? And I think Kai Forbath missed that field goal. And in overtime, and I was like, this game's really about to end up in a tie.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that, Rob. So I did this just for kicks, because every year I do NFL preview. And I had this game as a tie, and I would just, I'd just be BSing. And as a matter of fact, and I'm going to pull the receipt from that because it's on my old website. But that game, I swear, I didn't think I was going to make it. Like, literally, like, that game, because it was early. It was 9:30 in the morning. And it's just, it was so physically draining. I remember because it was in October because right in fact it was right it was weird because it was a really hot day, and I remember just sweating all day, and I kept on like going in and out trying to get some fresh air, and I'm just like, and then like missing those field goals and just the back and forth nature of that game, and I'm just like, dude, let this game be over because I don't think I can make it for another like 20, 30 so more minutes. I mean, I really felt like I don't know if I'm gonna see the end of that night. I mean that morning. And it was just
that was definitely. I remember because I just actually bought a couch from my wife when we were friends, and I needed a new couch, so I bought hers from her. And I remember it was a sectional, so it was situation one of those. And I had decided to. I think she showed me to put them together, so had all the seats. It was like a big ass bed, and that's where I ended up sleeping most of the time. But I was sitting up on the back of the couch with my feet on the cushions the entire game. Because it was a back and forth roller coaster. And I think that was when Cincinnati was on the decline. They after their 4 playoff runs with Andy Dalton, he was starting to regress a little bit, and it was we were coming off a playoff appearance. And so we had expectations of going to the playoffs again, and that season had gone pretty well up until that point. So we were obviously riding high, and we thought it was going to be not a gimme, but I definitely didn't think we were going to tie.
I know, right? And that's another thing where that was just such a bizarre game. Like just a simple fact that we tied with them. Because matter of fact, was Jason Campbell, was he there? No, was that I think he was their backup quarterback.
The game against Cincinnati?
I think at that time.
No.
Because remember, he went to Cincinnati.
No,
Jason Campbell was a backup quarterback. I don't know if he was still there.
He was
didn't go to Cleveland. Did
I know for a fact he went to Cleveland. I'm not sure.
I think he had a cup of coffee in Cincinnati.
You're right. He did.
But yeah,
you're right. That was his year.
Was it? Because that was in 2006.
No. That was 2014. He was in Cincinnati.
Okay, yeah. I knew at once upon a time he was there, but I don't know if he was. Did he go to London?
No, he wasn't part of that team. But I completely forgot he was in Cincinnati.
Yeah, because I knew at one point he had a cup of coffee in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
But yeah, I but that's here nor there. But yeah, another guy I like, Darryl Green. I think Darryl Green was another guy who was solid.
Yeah.
And, 20 years in the league, and all out Iron Man of that team, and what's the other guys I liked? I mean, it's like tons of guys I like. Santana Moss.
Yeah, he was one of my favorites too. Darryl Green, actually.
Darryl Green, yeah.
I was trying to debate on which jersey I was going to wear today, and my two that I came down to was this one, which is my London Fletcher jersey.
Oh yes,
and he was also one of my favorites. We'll get into that in a little bit. But my other option was my Darryl Green, and I ended up going with this one. But Darryl Green, who was it? Asante Samuel, who a couple weeks ago said that Darryl Green wasn't.
Yes,
boy.
And I'm like, man, you
here.
And you know what? And that's borderline disrespectful because they play the same position. Now I can understand if he was like a wide out or something like that, but I'm like, dude, you don't understand. Like, dude, you like, are you still in the league?
Exactly.
Like, you're not. Like, dude, this man played in the NFL for 20 years.
20 years.
And still had to get up and go even back in 2003 when he left the game. He still was killing cats.
And the fact that Asante Samuel only had a few good years in New England. He had decent years in Atlanta, but
exactly
his good years were in New England.
And I wonder why.
Exactly, man.
It's like all of them. It's all of them like that. That's why, like, and that they're just a product of the system.
Yep, of course.
Because you look at and that's another thing too, where it is what it is. But that's the thing where it's just like I couldn't believe he said that. And I'm like, by some time I'm be thinking to myself, these guys may just be sitting at home in quarantine bored,
right.
Because I'm just like, for you to be in the same essentially the same position, a guy that you probably looked up to and watched the film, or model or somehow, at least your opponents, your contemporaries, mold their game after. I'm like,
exactly.
That's just, to me, that just sounds really stupid, and it's just one of those things where it's just like, dude, you're just trying to get attention because no one really knows who the hell you. I forgot all about Asante Samuel, even though he was a good cornerback, but.
Yeah, because you figured Derek Green was going up against Michael Irvin twice a year.
Right. And then going against those guys in Philly, because Philly always had good receivers. And then, the Giants had good receivers.
Yeah, I read that tweet and I was like, man, I'm not even going to waste my time with a response, a retweet or anything like that. Like, yeah, it was.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
exactly.
He was all right, but he ain't Darryl Green gold jacket.
No, if he gets into the Hall of Fame, it'll be like his last few years of eligibility when maybe he's appreciated a little bit more. But man, Darryl Green was a whole different beast.
Absolutely, and it was a guy that actually I went to high school with that played for the Washington Redskins. He was a guy who I deemed had a cup of coffee in the greater DC area. My guy was so I came out in 2002. He graduated in 2005 in high school. He actually became the leading rusher in Virginia football history, Virginia high school league history. His record just broke this year, so he had to run for about 14 years. Went on to Virginia Tech, got drafted by Philly, didn't go good in Philly, so we signed him. And I remember we signed him, and I remember the night before, and I'm like, the night before the game, I'm like, I couldn't go to sleep because I was so excited. Like, man, seeing a cat I went to school with going, playing for my beloved squad,
right?
And it didn't work out. He, like I mentioned, he had a cup of coffee and 2 creams in DC. It didn't last long, but just the sheer fact that he got to that level and and was able to play for the Redskins for, I want to say, a game or 2 potentially. But yeah. So I was like, that was kind of cool.
The closest I got was a guy I went to high school with, played for Buffalo. He actually went to high school with him. He graduated my junior year. So he was a year ahead of me. And he went to Washington State, played 4 years, was undrafted free agent, played for Buffalo. And that was the year, I forgot who they had. Who did they have that year? I remember people ended up getting hurt. And they got down on the depth chart far enough that he was the starter. And interviewed him. And then they actually played in Washington. Or no, they played in Jacksonville. Because I was already in the Navy. And the Bills played the Jaguars that day, and I was going to go to that game, but I was coming back from an underway. We pulled in that morning at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and I wouldn't have had enough time to get home, change, and go to the game. But that's the closest I've been, to knowing somebody in the league.
Yeah, and that was like, it was funny because it's like I felt like I was playing, and it was the most weirdest thing. Because I was like, I couldn't go to sleep. I was really anxious. Like, man, it's weird. It was almost felt like a almost like I wonder what we're gonna do in the game. Is he gonna get in the game? Like, so I was like, just very, very anxious, and it was cool though. It was a nice, really cool experience.
Yeah.
That. And then guys, and it's one thing where it's just so many guys to name, but it was a lot of it's a lot of great players that we've had, and of course, we talked about Sean Taylor earlier. That was another guy that, obviously that that always, that we loved, that that we, always, thought he was one of the best players of this organization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could do a whole show, a whole 2-hour
mm-hmm.
show on Sean Taylor.
Exactly. And I know and another guy you were talking about, London Fletcher. That was
Yeah. London Fletcher was so. Quick story on jerseys. I don't buy jerseys of active players because my first one was Champ Bailey. He got traded. And then I had a Stephen Davis jersey. He got traded or released. And then I got a Sean Taylor jersey, and then he ended up dying. So I was like, all right, that's it. I'm done buying active players jerseys. If now they're getting traded or released, okay, that's one thing. But now I'm not trying to kill people out here. That's not me. So ended up stopped buying jerseys, and then think one year it was RG3's rookie year. I came home. I was home on leave for a little bit, and I traded my dad. I'd given him something for this jersey right here. And I was like, you know what? It's London Fletcher. He's never missed a game. Yeah, he's a great player. I'll be fine. It's London Fletcher. If anybody's going to be fine with my curse, it's going to be London Fletcher. So I get the jersey. Literally the next day, he misses practice. And I was like,
oh, boy.
And I ended up leaving the jersey at home by accident. And he ended up playing that game and finished out the rest of his career in Washington before I was able to get this jersey back. So that was when I knew the fact that he had never missed a game. And the minute I got this jersey, the very next day, he missed practice. I forget what the injury was, but he had missed practice. And I was like, yeah, this is a sign. I'm done. I haven't bought a jersey of an active player yet, but yeah, that's the story behind this jersey. And I love this jersey.
Yeah, man. And that's one thing too, where the jersey thing, and it's crazy because I think the most recent one I've had was D'Angelo Hall, because I'm a 23 guy, so and it's crazy, and I don't know what's gonna happen with, which I think I'm because I actually have personalized Redskins plates, so I don't know what's gonna happen with that. Like I'm almost to a point where, hey, DMV, since there's going to be a name change, can I get a complimentary replacement?
Right.
Am I allowed to? Will you guys give me a trade in?
We'll see.
I doubt it.
I do want to ask you this real quick though. What are your thoughts on the merch that's coming out? The whole Washington football team merch.
You know what's so funny? I was pissed in the beginning. But then you posted one about the beanie. I turned around real sharp. I was like, you know what? That beanie's kind of fire. That beanie is kind of fire. I was like, you know what? I wouldn't mind coughing the $30 or so for that beanie. I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I kept on. I was like, oh gosh, this is embarrassing. And then you showed that. I was like,
Man.
I was like, maybe this is not as bad as I envisioned.
Yep. I saw that beanie because I got the notification. I think I was playing Madden on my iPad, or I was doing something on my iPad, and I got the notification. I looked at my phone, and actually it was on my iPad, and at the top, all it said was Washington announces, and I like shut it down real quick, and I logged on. Like, what's the name? What's the name?
Right.
Washington football team. I was like,
whoa.
Okay.
What?
Like, and it even said temporary, all that, and I was like, okay, cool, whatever. Like, not a big deal. We don't have an actual name. And then I saw the Adam Schefter post on Twitter about the beanie, and I was looking at it, and I looked at my wife. I was like, I'm getting this beanie.
It's a little tough.
In fact, on Fanatics, the Redskins site on Fanatics is down right now. Nothing comes up. So I'm thinking probably in the morning, all the Washington football team merch will be up, and I'm definitely copping that beanie for sure. And I'll see what else they have. But that beanie is a must.
Yeah, that beanie. I was like, this beanie look a little. I like this.
And it's gonna be one of those things that we can look back on it, and in my kids right now, my son is 5 and my daughter's 2. My daughter just turned 2. You know, in 20 years, whatever the team name happens to be, whether it's Red Wolves, Red Tails, or it stays Washington football team, we can look back. Or actually, it would have to be if it changes, because we can look back on it and show this stuff. I can show this stuff to my kids and be like, yeah, there was a time when we're just the Washington football team. We wouldn't. Ryan, we don't need that negativity here. All right, this is a funeral, man. Come on, now.
That's my cousin, man. So I'm just giving him a little shine, but that'll be the end. We'll shut him down if he gets a little reckless in here.
Everybody has that family member,
absolutely.
But yeah, we'll be able to look back on this in 20 years after the team name changed or whatever it is, saying, you know, there was a time that we were the Washington football team, and And my biggest thing with all this is that, you know, not just with the team name, but in history in general, when all this is in history books and people learn about this, when my kids come to me and ask me, hey, Dad, where were you? Like, what was your view on this? And I can sit there and say, well, you know, completely honestly, I was on the good side of history. I was on the side of standing with the people. You know, there were others who weren't, who misguided, misinformed, whatever you want. But I was on the side of history, and I can live with that. I can sleep at night. Right. Well, I'm definitely getting that beanie tomorrow, though.
Facts. So we're gonna put a bow on this funeral, man. Just your final thoughts. Just, you know, if you want to like recap your thoughts, kind of, you know, before we put a bow on it. Our final words.
So yesterday I was going through and I typed up, you know, the big things I wanted to hit on that I wanted to make sure I hit on.
Yeah.
And I started to type out, you know, my final thoughts, but then I thought you'd be better just, you know, do it from the heart, top of the head, you know.
Yeah.
And I guess right now my current thoughts are, if you're a fan of the team, you know, regardless of how you feel about the name change, or if you feel that it's, you know, just because we're in a PC world, or, you know, the world's gotten soft, which I hate when people say that. I hate when people say, oh, the world is soft. No, we're just educated.
Yeah.
You know, there was a time when the N-word was such a widely used word, and it was, you know, and then people became educated and they're like, hey, yeah, let's not say that.
Right.
If you're a fan of the team, this should not be the reason you are no longer part of the team, part of the fan base. If a name change is what pushed you over the edge, you were never really a fan to begin with. You were just looking for a reason to leave,
right?
Because you didn't want to be, you know, a bandwagon fan. And me and my dad had this talk when he was here last weekend. Because he even said, he was like, maybe this is, you know, because we've talked about what would it take for you to change team, because he's been a fan his entire life. He has seen 2 of the 3 Super Bowl wins, and so it was one of those we've talked about, like, what would it take, and we both kind of decided that it was a location move. If the team moved locations, that was kind of where we would start to consider. But he even said when he was here, he's like, hey, maybe this is our chance, and I was like, no, the name shouldn't be what pushes us over the edge. So yeah, if you're trying to jump ship because of the name change, you were just looking for a reason to leave, and we're honestly fine. Good. You know, we don't really want people like that if this is what's gonna, you know, get in your feelings. But just support the team. It's gonna be a process through the name change, you know, new head coach, young team. It's gonna be a process of everything all together. But just, you know, keep rocking with us. We're gonna get there eventually. I'm convinced that we will see a Super Bowl win in DC in our lifetime.
Yeah. And I'm with you as well, man. I think this 3 weeks has been like kind of almost like a soul searching type of moment for me, where I mean, I'm not gonna front. Part of me wanted to jump ship, but a part of me is like, it's not the name. It's you know the thing about it is this team is woven like this to me. It's more than a team for me. This is my routine. This is my essentially my love from July to whenever our season ends. Normally it's been in December. We haven't really had any January.
Sometimes November.
Right, or we haven't had any first Friday and first Sunday in February moments in our history yet. But it's just one of those things where it's more than just the name. The name can change, but the feelings will always be there forever. Like just the bonds I've created with just Redskins, with Skins fans, and just in general, the relationship I have with this team, it'll never die. We'll just create new memories.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the end.
Yep.
And it's just, it's one of those things where it's everything happens for a reason. And I think this is going to be the turning point for this franchise. As I even said on my show several times, where essentially that, in order for us to kind of evolve as a franchise, as far as moving our stadium, the name had to change.
Yeah.
And when we have these type of change that we want to have, if we want to go back to DC, like we richly deserve, and kudos, and even kudos to Mayor Bowser, who was up front and said, "Hey, you guys want to come back here? You got to change that name."
Exactly.
So now the name has changed. This is going to give us an opportunity to, once we build a stadium in that RFK land, we'll have the ability to host the Super Bowl within the next 5 years.
Oh yeah, it's coming.
And that's right. And that's another thing where I think it's in when we get caught up in the name, that's when I think we get archaic. I don't want to be that, and I know I'm getting older. I'm obviously now with gray in my beard. I don't ever want to be the stay off my lawn kind of guy. I always want to evolve.
Yep.
Trust me. It does hurt. The name is gone. But in the same token, I know in order for this team to move forward, these things have to happen. I don't want to stay in FedEx for essentially for the rest of our, for the foreseeable future.
Right.
We can't, and then you can't lose the money from these title sponsors. You can't lose money from, Bank of America, Nike, FedEx.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these are titans in the industry. You don't want to burn those bridges over something that of a name change. And that's one thing too, like you said. And it's not more so as PC, it's more that we evolved. And I think we all have to evolve in some point of our lives. Because at the end of the day, this is what this is. This is an evolvement. We have to evolve. The memories will always be there. There will be a slip of the tongue probably for the rest of my life that may say the Redskins name. But at the same token, charge it to my head, not to my heart.
Yep.
And it's just one of those things where if we're going to make even better memories, this team is going to move on. We're going to, we still can call ourselves the Skins. We can still do whatever. But in the same token, we have to evolve. And it would just be so unfair, especially for us. And I think too, where we understand, like you gave a great point of the N-word, where that was literally like how we would say hi and bye and once upon a time.
Yep.
But now involvement in the learning the context behind that word, you don't say that anymore.
Right.
And this is what this is. And, fairly or not, and I was, one of those guys in the beginning, but then I had to really realize you got to look at the big picture. At the end of the day, you could be stuck with that name, and then this franchise could be bankrupt and somebody comes and buy this teams, and this team could go 4,000 or 5,000 miles away from here.
Yep.
And you wouldn't even have a team in DC. So it's to a point where a gun was placed to our head. They told us, give us everything. You give them what they want.
Yeah.
Because you live to fight another day. You want to live to have more memories. And this is what this is.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people who have jumped ship. And I know people who jump ship. Go. I mean, I give you a life jacket. I give you my life jacket because I'm staying on this
right?
boat. I'm staying on this boat.
Yeah, it's I don't blame them. I definitely don't blame them, especially considering the fact that like we talked about when I had, it was me, you, and Mo
Yeah.
on. I had you guys on the show after the whole name change, or the name became, they retired the name and logo officially, but unofficially, they we will never be Cowboys fans.
No,
That's
that'll
we've
never
already
happen.
established that.
No, never.
But
That will
we
never
did
happen.
talk about how, I was strongly considering it. I live an hour from Seattle, and
Right.
I'm a huge Russell Wilson fan. I was
Hmm.
ready. I was
Yeah.
ready to go get my jersey. Like I was ready, and then ended up not doing it because, again, looking back on
Right.
20
Yeah.
years of being a fan of, like we just talked about, all those memories we have. I have that memory of
Right.
sitting in my living room with my dad, you
Yep.
know, beating Tampa Bay in that playoff game. I
Right.
remember whenever news broke, calling him, "Hey, what do you think about this?" and getting his perspective. Um, yeah, definitely don't blame them for
Yeah.
changing teams.
Right.
Not even in the slightest. One other thing I do want to say is that, because a lot of people are saying that Dan Snyder is only, um oh shit. I live
Yeah.
in Port Orchard, Steven. So definitely need to link up soon then. Once everything starts opening back up. Um but what was I saying? Oh, so a lot of people are saying that, um Dan Snyder, he's giving in, and he's I saw one person commenting, I say we sold out, which, yes, Dan Snyder is changing the name of the team because it was beginning to affect his bottom line. My point is, although is not the ideal reasoning behind it, our focus needs to be on the fact that it's changing.
Yeah.
Yes, you can, because it's very clear he did not want to
Hmm.
change the name, and
Right.
he only changed it, was only beginning to change it because it was affecting his money. The money was
Right.
about to be gone, so he said, "Okay, fine, I'll change it." He doesn't want to. It's like that. It's that episode of Bob's Burgers. I don't know if you've ever watched it, because
Yeah.
I'm a little younger, so I've seen it, and it's become a meme where it says, "Fine, I'll do it, but I'm gonna complain the entire time."
Right.
And that's what he's doing. He's doing it, but he's complaining, and we know that. So yes, it's
Right.
not the ideal reasoning. We would have liked him to change it sooner, based on it being the right thing to do. But it's not why he's doing it, but he's
Right.
still doing
Right.
it. And at the end of the
Right.
day, if because I've even said this before, whether you think it's offensive or not, I've never been in the camp that it is offensive, because I'm Mexican, so I have native blood in me. I'm not very in touch with it, so I don't really feel one way or the other, but I've never really found it offensive. But the fact that somebody does, it
Right.
upsets and it offends somebody. It's not my right to tell them, "Hey, that doesn't offend you. You're wrong for being offended." It's
Right.
not who I am. I try not to be, at least. So, ideal reasoning? No, not at all.
Right.
He handled it poorly, but you know what? It's changing.
Changing.
Get
Yep.
on board with it. We got a season coming up. We have a promising season, a brand
Yes,
new
indeed.
coaching staff, a great coach, have been there, done that. That's what we need to focus on.
Right. Right.
And that's really all I got.
Yeah. And like you said, going back to, and that's one thing too, where especially now, and the timing of everything that's going on, where we look at in certain factors where we want empathy for certain things. And like I said a few weeks ago, where I could go on the internet and find a million articles that say that it's offensive, and I can find another million that say it's not. But in the same token, I can't have a blind eye to that. If there are
Right?
certain issues, and especially with us, we're minorities,
Mm-hmm.
and there are certain things that are going on in this world. And I don't want to, get into it, and as far as, because that'd be 3 hours. But anyway,
Right. Right.
but there are certain situations that are going on in this country where you and I, we expect, we're going through certain things where we want people to have empathy in certain realms of what's going on, socially in this country. And for me to take a blind eye to, to a name that would offend a certain group, that's cowardly. That would be something that, how could I, in essence, take a blind eye to your, to your struggle, not struggle, but more so of how you feel about certain things. But,
right.
But
yeah,
yeah,
perfectly said. You yeah, just us being in the positions that we are, and
yeah,
like you said, being minorities, we can't, because
right.
when the time comes that we need somebody to stand up for us
Right.
and speak out for us, it's
Yeah,
I can't be the silent type, because if I ever need someone to be that voice for me, I would want that voice.
right.
So I would definitely, I love being the voice for people that don't have voices.
Exactly. So, Rob, we have put to bed our beloved Washington Redskins for the final time.
This is it.
Yes, this is it. So where can they find you on social media, Rob?
You already know where to find me. Twitter, FNC Pod. Facebook and Instagram are both Facebook and Chill Podcast. Yeah, I definitely have some things in the works. Working on a few different things right now. We all have things that we're coming out with soon. Just go follow me, like my page. Definitely support. You can find me on all podcasting platforms. Anchor, I'm on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, Stitcher. You can find me everywhere. Go follow me. Leave me some reviews. Help me get help me start moving up in the ranking. I'm trying to get on Chris LeBron's status. I know he been moving up. He's been moving up the rankings. I've seen that. I'm trying to get up there where he's trying to be like him when I grow up.
You get there. You gonna get there. Your brothers, we're gonna take you. We're gonna take you there.
We all going. I feel it.
We all, yeah. Oh, yep. Our group, our little clique now. We about to take over.
Yeah,
that's all I gotta say. Is it's a wrap for everybody else. But yeah, man. Definitely thank everybody for checking in. Looking at checking us out tonight. The feedback was incredible. Definitely huge shout out to everybody who gave us that, and then shout out to everybody who thought this shit was a joke, that we thought it was was all funny. But no, man, it was for real. We did it great. Me and Rob killed it tonight, and it was just it was a great retrospect of what has transpired over these illustrious years of our beloved team that we so richly love. And we thank everybody for taking time out their busy Friday night. You could have been anywhere else, but you spent your evening with me and Rob. And we appreciate you guys, and thank you so much. And this has been a special Couch Coach Live. And man, we'll catch you guys on the next go around, man. Thank you guys so much.
Yes, sir.